Well, while you were sleeping, those folks in Australia, they were up. And they were getting deals done. Facebook with the 180, and you may have heard this by now, that Facebook pulled news content from Facebook in Australia. In fact, you couldn't even share an Australian news site in the rest of the world as well if you tried to share some story out of Australia. Well, overnight, a 180 by Facebook, and they are going to bring news back to their site. Let's try and get an update on that, and also look at perhaps how Canada will be the next battlefront, a battlefield between Facebook and governments. Daniel Bernhard is Executive Director of Friends of Canadian Broadcasting. He joins us again. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for coming back.
Elias, pleasure to talk to you.
So, Daniel, do you have any more details on the news out of Australia? Was this a capitulation by Facebook or the Australian government, or a little bit of both? Do you know?
Facebook would like you to believe that their tantrum paid off. They didn't like the idea that they would be forced to pay journalists for the content that they use, and so they threw a fit like a kid in the grocery store and decided to pull all news content out of Australia. And in doing so, they also did it really badly. They pulled the Weather Service, Cancer Society pages, police pages. Actually, their own Facebook page in Australia was pulled down. That's how badly this was done. So they threw a fit, and now they want you to believe that this fit paid off, and that is absolutely false. Facebook capitulated 100%. They had two objectives in their negotiations with the government, and they got none of them. What they got was a slight modification that maybe allows them to save face, but this is a big win for democracy. It's a big win for governments who show resolve and courage in the face of these bullying companies, and it's a great example for Canada to be able to follow if we are, in fact, the next in line to take this rogue giant on.
Why do you call it a big win for democracy? I see some, and I don't agree with them, but I see some people saying, you know what, this is just a tax on linking, and it's ridiculous, and we shouldn't have that. So why do you think this is a win for democracy?
Well, what you think you should have is something that is debated in Parliament. It's not something that companies unilaterally decide. Duly elected government in Australia, plus the opposition, were unanimous in their decision that companies like Google and Facebook dominate the advertising market so much that it is impossible for anybody else to wiggle out a living, and this causes legitimate journalism to go bankrupt. We cannot live in a democracy without journalism, and so there must be payments. And that was the theory. It was supported by a government elected by 25 million people. The government has held firm. Companies like Facebook cannot threaten them, they cannot bully them. That's why it's a win for democracy. Even if you don't like what the government of Australia has done, it is a duly elected government which has made a democratically legitimate decision, and I'm glad that they stuck with it, even though there was pressure from this, frankly, outrageously behaved American company. They stuck with it. They said the will of the people will stand, and that's what has prevailed ultimately.
Daniel, give our listeners an overview of the markets that Facebook and Google now have a stranglehold on, and why you feel the governments needed to act because of that stranglehold.
Well, everybody knows that the future of advertising is digital, and the modern web is built on advertising. Google and Facebook are both advertising companies, and they take more than 80% of all digital advertising revenues in Canada, and it's actually quite similar in most of the world. They get that money based on content that people look at, and they spend their time there, but they don't actually pay for any of that content. Other people pay for it. So people pay to create the content. They pay you, for example, to make the show. Somebody posts it on Facebook, listens to a clip on Facebook. Facebook makes all the ad revenue from listening to this interview, even though they haven't paid for any of the technology or the people involved in putting it together. So that's a failing. It's a huge problem. And what the Australians have done is they've recognized this new public good in the law called public interest journalism. And they said, if the market can't sustain it because the market means all the money goes to these people who produce none of the journalism, then we need to make a change, and we need to make sure that the people who employ the journalists get paid so that they can keep employing journalists. And that's exactly what's happened here. It's not perfect, by any means, but it is definitely a recognition of the problem, and it is a decisive action that will make things better.
Daniel Bernhard is Executive Director of Friends of Canadian Broadcasting. So the real question here, Daniel, is when does this fight arrive in Canada? When does the legislation go through in this country? What is going to go through in this country? Give us your foresight on that issue.
Well, we may not have an Olympics this summer, but the communications team from Heritage Minister Stephen Guilbeault definitely wins a gold medal in my books, because they have positioned him globally as the next in line to fight Facebook and to take them on, and to implement laws like this in Canada. However, we have not actually seen a law. We don't know what they're proposing. Their consultations with industry haven't even started yet. So this is something the government promises to do. They want credit for promising to do it, but they haven't done it. So we'll really have to see. And one way that we can increase pressure is by showing that Canadians care about this. And I would encourage your listeners to come and visit us. We have a dedicated site for this campaign. It's called newsthief.ca. You can download a pretty funny poster of Mark Zuckerberg looking like a criminal for stealing all of everybody's news content, and show that we won't be pushed around. Everyone is saying that Facebook is going to bully Canada next if Canada, follows Australia's footsteps. And the government needs to know that Canadians have their back, that Canadians expect them to act with resolve and with courage and not be pushed around, and that's a way that you can show it. So go to newsthief.ca, enter your email. We'll keep you in touch with you about how you can support this campaign, because it is coming. Maybe not right now, but it's coming soon, and we need to show the government that a watered down, compromised version of this, which lets Facebook drive the bus, is not acceptable.
Daniel, what do you say to people that look at this situation and say, well, the government's just picking a winner here? So, if they go through with a legislation like this, well, they're going from saying, okay, Facebook gets the money, but basically they're tipping the scales so that it's the big media conglomerates that get the money, right? The knock in Australia is that this is basically opening the taps for Rupert Murdoch and his companies. And I guess the knock here in Canada would be, well, this is just to benefit the big media conglomerates in this country, whether it's, Bell Media, Rogers Media, Post Media, all of these companies will be the benefactors. What do you say to someone's like, well, this just means the government is picking the winner here?
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate concern. But unfortunately, this concern is only being expressed by people who haven't actually read what the Australians are proposing. So the Australians are proposing that Facebook and Google need to make deals with all publishers in the country, or they can't use content from any of the publishers. That includes people whose revenues are as low as $150,000 a year and all the way up to the Murdochs who are making hundreds of millions. If they can't make deals with the little guys, nobody gets in. There are also obligatory arbitration rules in the bill, which mean that even a small company could stare down Facebook, and an arbitrator would rule in their favor to ensure that they get a fair price. So that concern is completely unfounded. You need to actually read the bill. And one of the frustrating things that I found from critics in Canada who want to stand on their soapbox and talk about how this is all benefiting big media, they need to actually read the bill. Friends is a citizens group. I don't take a cent from big media. We don't take a cent from any company at all. We're not in this for them. We're in this for citizens, and we wouldn't be supporting this initiative if we didn't think it was good for the Canadian people. So read the bill before you criticize it would be my comment to those
Daniel,
people.
I love the passion, Daniel. Newsthief.ca. I'm on the website. I loaded it up while you were talking. It's a nice website. I love the poster of Mark Zuckerberg. Go check it out. Daniel Bernhard, Executive Director of Friends of Canadian Broadcasting. Take care, Daniel. We'll catch up soon.
You too. Thanks.